A magnificent clock tower stands tall against the backdrop of a dark night sky, with a bright moon peeking through the clouds as a streak of light descends from above. From a low angle between two dark buildings, the full height of the imposing magic tower is visible, with a few of its windows glowing warmly. Inside a gloomy stone chamber, heavy, rusted chains hang from the ceiling, and anatomical sketches of skulls are tacked onto the wall. A violent splash of crimson blood erupts across the screen, stark against the darkness. The aftermath of the violence is shown, with blood splattered high on a stone wall near where the heavy chains are anchored. Viewed from behind, our boy's head is bowed, his brown hair matted with sweat. His bare back is covered in fresh, bloody wounds, and his shoulders heave with exhaustion. In a wide view of the chamber, Zedaran is on his knees, his shirtless torso covered in injuries. His arms are stretched wide and shackled by heavy chains, while a group of men in dark robes observe him dispassionately. A close-up reveals the face of the lead observer, a severe-looking man with dark, slicked-back hair containing a single streak of silver. Our boy's face is contorted in pain, his eyes squeezed shut as sweat and blood trickle down his skin while he struggles to breathe. The scene shifts to a corner of the room, revealing a laboratory setup with various glass beakers, test tubes filled with colorful liquids, and an empty cage hanging from a wooden structure. A glass container is shown, completely filled with a writhing mass of black ants. A single ant is seen crawling along the edge of its glass enclosure. Zedaran's face is a mask of pure agony. His eyes are wide with shock, and blood sprays from his mouth as he grits his teeth against unimaginable pain. The thick, dark chains binding our boy are pulled taut, straining under immense pressure. Our boy's hand, bruised and bloody, is clenched into a desperate fist around the chains shackling his wrist. The man with the silver streak in his hair glances back with a cruel, knowing smirk, while his robed subordinates stand by. With his head hanging low in defeat, Zedaran's battered and bleeding body slumps forward. Blood drips from our boy, landing on the cold stone floor and staining the intricate magic circle carved into it. A hand violently grabs a fistful of Zedaran's hair, yanking his head backward. A young man with curly blonde hair and wearing a mage's robe sneers down at our boy, holding his head up to force eye contact. The blonde man flashes a malicious grin, backed by his cronies, who all share similar looks of amusement at our boy's expense. Still holding the kneeling and chained Zedaran by the hair, the blonde mage continues to mock him. An ant crawls along the floor, following the path of a glowing red line that is part of the magic circle. A close-up on our boy's eye shows him looking away from his tormentor, his gaze fixed on something else, a streak of blood drying on his cheek. The blonde mage's expression sours as he turns his head, annoyed that he has lost his victim's attention. He follows our boy's gaze and spots the small ant crawling on the magic circle on the floor. In a fit of irritation, the blonde mage raises his foot and brings it down with a powerful stomp. Two of the robed men look down upon the still-chained Zedaran, one of them smiling with sadistic pleasure. The ant is shown crushed on the stone floor, its body splattered in a pool of its own fluids. A macro shot gives a gruesome, detailed view of the dead insect. Though his head is still bowed, a slight, grim smile touches our boy's lips. The blonde mage looks on with a bewildered expression, while his companions continue to smile smugly. With a sudden burst of defiance, Zedaran throws his head back and lets out a roar, his eyes glowing with an intense, otherworldly blue light. A flashback begins, showing the beautiful magic tower in all its glory, bathed in the gentle light of a purple-hued dusk. In a memory, a much younger Zedaran stands before two towering, hooded figures, sadly clutching a document that has determined his fate. As a young boy working in the tower, he holds a broom but is distracted by a spellbook left open on a nearby desk, his eyes wide with curiosity. Late at night in the grand library, illuminated by a single oil lamp, our boy pores over stacks of ancient books, absorbing all the knowledge he can. Years later, now a young man dressed in the robes of a researcher, Zedaran smiles proudly, holding a stack of his own thesis papers. A senior researcher with red hair stares at our boy's work, his expression one of utter disbelief and astonishment. A blushing Zedaran scratches the back of his neck, smiling with humble gratitude as a colleague praises his work. The colleague, a man named Lucard, looks over the research papers with a questioning and surprised look on his face. A cup of dark liquid is tipped over, spilling its contents and ruining a beautifully drawn magic circle on a piece of parchment. The magic tower is shown from the outside, its architecture glowing in the warm light of a setting sun. From a high angle, Zedaran is seen desperately running into the Tower Master's opulent office. The Tower Master, Balrog Bessius, sits in his library-filled office, calmly reading through the stolen thesis. Our boy looks up with a face full of hope and expectation, believing that justice will be served. The light in his eyes fades as a large shadow falls over him, his expression turning to one of dawning horror. From behind, the Tower Master's hand comes to rest firmly on our boy's shoulder. The Tower Master leans in close, his face cast in sinister red light, a terrifying, predatory grin spreading across his lips as his eyes glow ominously. Our boy is thrown violently onto the hard floor of a dark, square prison cell. The blonde mage, Weller, and his two companions stand over Zedaran's fallen body, looking down with expressions of pure contempt. A montage of images flashes by. A syringe filled with red liquid. A heart-shaped potion bottle held within a skeletal hand, and our boy's hands weaving a glowing magic circle. The agonizing face of Zedaran is shown once more, representing the endless cycle of painful experiments he was forced to endure. He is left completely broken, lying on his back in the middle of a dark, barren cell. The only light coming from a small barred window in the door. With blood smeared on his cheek and his eyes tightly shut, our boy's face is a picture of absolute hopelessness. An overhead view emphasizes his isolation, a lone figure lying in the oppressive darkness of his cell. A warm, bright light shines through the leaves of a tree, signaling a shift to a distant, happier memory. Two small children, a young Zedaran and a girl with bright red hair, run through a sun-dappled field, laughing. A memory of our boy as a young worker, looking flustered while carrying a heavy box. The two children sit together in the grass, the magic tower standing proudly in the background, as the red-haired girl talks animatedly. The two children lock their pinky fingers together, making a solemn promise. In a more recent memory, Zedaran stands awkwardly amongst a group of newly appointed mages, including Weller and Lucard, all celebrating together. Another researcher claps a smiling Zedaran on the back, while Weller and another mage watch from the side with smirks. A bloody, trembling hand from the present reaches out towards the memory of our boy's own smiling, hopeful face from the past. Back in the present, Zedaran peers through the bars of his cell door, his face battered. Below, a hand glows with a faint golden light before it fizzles out into nothing. A trail of drool and sweat drips from his chin onto his bruised chest. A horde of black ants begins to pour into the cell from a grate at the bottom of the door, swarming across the floor. A close-up of our boy's eyes shows his complete exhaustion and surrender to his fate. The image of the single crushed ant from earlier appears again. A symbol of his own trampled existence. From his perspective, our boy looks down as the endless tide of ants floods his dark prison. The swarm of ants begins to coalesce on the floor, rising up and taking on a humanoid shape. The ants merge completely, forming the solid black silhouette of a person standing before him. This shadow figure, with a wicked grin and glowing white eyes, reaches out and gently lifts Zedaran's chin, forcing him to look up. The scene transforms, showing our boy from behind, now wearing a dark cloak and standing before a massive, glowing purple magic circle. A hand, clean and strong, clenches into a powerful and determined fist. The full moon shines brightly in the night sky, seen through the gaps between large stone pillars. The camera pans over a section of a complex magic circle, intricately carved into a dark stone floor. The camera moves to show another part of the magic circle, this time in the corner of a dark room. Back in his cell, our boy is seen hunched over, using a sharp shard of rock to painstakingly carve the final runes of a magic circle into the floor. His eye is shown in extreme close-up, reflecting the complex, glowing runes he has created, his focus absolute. His bloodied hand slams down into the center of the magic circle, causing the runes to erupt with a brilliant purple energy. The entire floor of the prison cell is now a single, massive, and powerfully glowing magic circle of his own design. With a look of intense determination, Zetarain reaches out his hand as his body becomes wreathed in crackling white and blue energy. Our boy's bloody hand is engulfed in a brilliant golden light, crackling with raw magical power. Kneeling on the floor of his cell, our boy picks up his discarded shirt, the intricate magic circle he carved into the stone glowing faintly before him. Zetarain puts his shirt back on, his chest still dotted with bloodstains from his earlier torment. A close-up of our boy's face shows his eyes narrowed with grim resolve, a bruise visible on his temple. An old-fashioned key is inserted into the keyhole of a heavy, reinforced wooden door. The blonde mage, Weller, glares menacingly at our boy, who stands before him with a fresh, bloody wound on his forehead and another on his lip. With a cold and emotionless expression, Zetarain stares back at his tormentor. From the darkness of a hallway, our boy is seen standing in the bright doorway of a grand, sunlit corridor. Inside a well-lit alchemical laboratory, Zetarain holds a large metal beaker and a rag, ready to begin his menial work. In the background, another version of him tends to a potion. He turns his head suddenly, as if hearing a sound from behind him. A young woman with long, vibrant red hair and wearing a dark, high-collared cape smiles gently as she enters the room. She walks towards Zetarain, who stands by a bookshelf, holding a book and a cloth. Our boy forces a small, polite smile, happy to see his old friend. The red-haired woman looks at Zetarain with a serious, unblinking expression. She reaches her hand out towards him in a gesture of invitation. Our boy looks down at her outstretched hand, his expression unreadable as he contemplates her offer. The red-haired woman becomes flustered, her cheeks flushing red as she quickly tries to explain herself. With a genuine warm smile, Zetarain stands confidently in front of a large, bright window. His friend's cheeks are still tinged with pink, and she looks away with a slightly disappointed expression. An elegant, horse-drawn carriage waits on a paved courtyard, ready for departure. From inside a dark room, Zetarain watches through a barred window as the carriage pulls away. A close-up shows his somber face partially obscured by the window bars. He turns away from the window, his back to the departing carriage. His hands are suddenly bound in front of him by heavy chains, a look of grim acceptance on his face. A massive crowd celebrates a festival in the city square, with mages creating a dazzling display of blue magical energy. From a high angle, a lone figure, our boy, walks across a brightly lit, checkered floor, carrying a tray with a pitcher and a cup. Zetarain knocks firmly on a heavy wooden door. Inside a dimly lit room, a man with a tired expression sits at a table, looking annoyed by the interruption. Our boy stands respectfully as the man places his cup down on the table with a clatter. The man takes a sip from his ornate cup, giving Zetarain a disdainful look. Our boy pushes open the door to a treasure vault, revealing shelves filled with priceless artifacts. He places his hand gently on the door, his fingers spread wide. He places his hand on a glowing purple orb, his expression turning sharp and focused. With a determined look, our boy glances over his shoulder, ensuring he is alone. He walks down a spiraling staircase made of what appear to be ancient, floating tomes. The space around him filled with a magical, starry void. His feet land softly on one of the booksteps, which glows with purple energy. He leaps from the final step, landing in front of a powerful, crackling magic circle that protects a single artifact. A magnificent, ornate staff with a glowing blue crystal at its tip floats in the center of the protective circle, radiating immense power. Zetarain stands before the glowing blue barrier, his resolve clear. A close-up on his face shows his brow furrowed in intense concentration. He reaches out and places his hand on the electric blue magic circle, dark tendrils of energy beginning to corrupt it. The powerful blue magic circle begins to crack and shatter under the influence of his touch. With a final, desperate push of energy, our boy shatters the protective barrier and firmly grips the magical staff. In a different part of the tower, a collection of expensive-looking liquor bottles sits on a shelf. Two mages sit at a table drinking, with the massive beating heart of the magic tower visible through a large window behind them. One of the guards, a man with a thick beard, pauses with his mug halfway to his lips, a look of surprise on his face. From his seat, the bearded guard spots Zetarain standing in the doorway. The two guards are seen from behind our boy, continuing their conversation, oblivious to his true intentions. With his back to the guards, Zedaran holds the powerful staff, its blue crystal glowing brightly. The bearded guard laughs heartily, completely unaware of the danger he is in. The second guard, a man with long, teal-colored hair, is sliced across the chest by a sudden flash of blue light. The teal-haired guard looks down in shock and confusion at the source of the attack. From the guard's point of view, Zedaran is seen standing calmly across the room, holding the glowing staff. Our boy's face is cold and devoid of emotion as he stares down his opponent. The teal-haired guard, enraged, summons his own staff and prepares to cast a spell. He channels a powerful spell, his body surrounded by a swirling vortex of bright blue magical energy. A close-up shows our boy's calm, almost bored expression as he faces the attack. A massive wave of magical energy, mixed with jagged chunks of rock, surges towards Zedaran. The teal-haired guard has a look of pure shock and disbelief on his face as his spell is countered. A splash of blood hits the polished wooden floor. The teal-haired guard is thrown to the floor, clutching a massive, bloody wound in his chest caused by a large rock. The body of the bearded guard lies motionless in the background. With a swift, powerful motion, our boy brings the glowing staff down towards the fallen mage. An overhead shot shows the aftermath. Two bodies lie on the floor in pools of blood, with Zedaran standing between them, holding the staff. He turns and faces the massive beating heart that powers the entire magic tower. From behind, our boy looks up at the colossal purple heart, which is suspended by countless tubes and wires in front of a giant magic circle. Zedaran pulls down the collar of his shirt, revealing a complex magic circle tattooed across his back. The magic circle on his back begins to glow with a brilliant, white light. Our boy holds the ornate staff, its blade pointed towards his chest as a glowing magic circle materializes on his skin. He plunges the bottom tip of the staff into the floor at his feet. A massive, intricate magic circle expands from the staff, covering the entire floor in a brilliant blue light. Holding the staff with both hands, Zedaran is engulfed in arcs of powerful blue lightning. He throws his head back and screams in agony as the immense power courses through his body, threatening to tear him apart. An explosion of purple and blue energy erupts from the center of the room. A massive pillar of pure blue magical energy shoots up from the top of the clock tower, piercing the dark, rainy sky. From a great distance, the pillar of light is seen rising into the heavens, illuminating the surrounding mountains as a carriage travels on a road below. The reflection of the brilliant blue pillar of light is seen in the glass of a window pane. The tower master, Balrog Basias, stares out the window, his face a mask of cold fury as he witnesses the intrusion. A close-up shows a large wooden cartwheel suddenly breaking off its axle, sending splinters and dirt flying. Under a full moon, a village lies in ruins, with smoke and dust rising from the rubble of destroyed buildings. A hand emerges from beneath a pile of wreckage, its owner clearly struggling. From a first-person perspective, two hands are shown holding the magical staff, which is still intact amidst the surrounding smoke and debris. Our boy's hand, held open, disintegrates into dust and particles that float away into the night sky. Zedaran is on his knees in the center of the devastation, his head bowed as dust and embers swirl around him. He looks up towards the night sky, his attention caught by something moving in the distance. Three beams of pure magical energy, shaped like glowing blue comets, soar through the dark forest. The tower master, Balrog Basias, is seen flying through the air at incredible speed, encased in a field of blue magic. Balrog lands amidst the smoke and ruins, his eyes scanning the area as he looks down upon the lone, shirtless figure of our boy. The tower master reaches out his hand, crackling with blue magical energy, ready to attack. A massive explosion of blue energy erupts, sending shards of ice and debris flying in all directions. The smoke and dust clear to reveal the silhouette of our boy, completely unharmed by the blast. Balrog stares forward with a look of pure hatred and rage, his hand still outstretched from his attack. He examines his hand, upon which a faint, shimmering magic circle has appeared, indicating a teleportation spell. The tower master's face is contorted in a furious snarl, enraged that his target has escaped. His boot, wreathed in a dark purple aura, hovers just above the shattered ground. Balrog stands alone in the desolate ruins, his body emitting an ominous purple energy that causes nearby rocks to float. With his eyes glowing a terrifying shade of purple, the Tower Master throws his head back and screams into the night. The sky above the ruined village roils with dark clouds, split by forks of brilliant white lightning. The scene shifts to a bright, sunny day, showing a clear blue sky and lush green treetops. Our boy's face is partially submerged in clear, sparkling water, his eyes closed. He bursts from the water, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. From behind, our boy is seen shirtless, squatting by the edge of a river in a peaceful, green forest. He stares at his reflection in the shimmering water, his mouth agape in disbelief at his completely changed appearance. With a look of shock, he brings a hand to his face, his hair now a striking silver ash color. He gently touches his newly colored hair, which was once brown. A close-up of his eye shows that it is no longer black, but a clear, vibrant blue. Zed Aaron hugs himself, a look of deep confusion on his face as he tries to process his transformation. A montage of recent events flashes by. The successful casting of his spell, the desperate escape, and the arrival of the furious Tower Master. The view shifts to a bright, sunny sky seen through the leaves of the forest canopy. Our boy is kneeling by the riverside, shirtless, examining the unfamiliar plants growing at the water's edge. He looks up from the river with a slight, confident smirk on his face. With a joyous laugh, Zed Aaron throws himself back onto the soft green grass. He lies on his back, basking in the sun and his newfound freedom, a wide, triumphant grin on his face. He rests his arm over his forehead, a look of calm satisfaction replacing his previous joy. The image of the Tower Master standing before the giant, purple heart of the magic tower appears as a memory. Our boy lies in the grass, a thoughtful and determined expression on his face as he plots his next move. He holds his hand up to the sky, the bright sun shining through his fingers as he contemplates the future. Lying in a bed of wildflowers, Zed Aaron clenches his fist with renewed purpose. In the middle of the woods, a small green goblin with a nasty snarl swings an axe, attempting to break open a wooden crate. Now fully clothed in an elegant black, white, and red robe, our boy reaches out his hand to cast a spell. A crescent-shaped blade of magical wind slices through the air, heading straight for the goblin. Zed Aaron stands among the trees, his hand still outstretched after casting his spell. He stands on a dirt path in the forest, examining his fingers with a puzzled expression. He touches a strand of his silver hair, a look of consternation on his face as he thinks. He kicks the head of the decapitated goblin, sending it flying off the path. Zed Aaron looks down and notices distinct tracks left in the dirt road. He kneels down beside the abandoned wooden crate, examining it with curiosity. With his eyes closed in concentration, he places his hand on the crate, a blue aura of mana detection spreading from his palm. A trail of blue lightning shoots out from the crate, acting as a magical guide. From inside a speeding carriage, the driver looks back with a frantic expression. The driver, a young man with dark hair, grips the reins tightly, his face a mask of sheer terror. A sepia-toned flashback shows a group of armed bandits confronting a caravan. In another flashback, the young driver stands helplessly before two menacing figures while trying to negotiate. The driver is shown cowering next to his horse, a large boot about to stomp down near him. A massive, snarling orc with a sadistic grin looms over the terrified driver. The driver peeks out from behind the cover of his wagon, watching as the orcs begin to attack the bandits. An overhead view shows the carriage speeding away from the chaotic scene down a dark, tree-lined road. The driver looks over his shoulder in a panic, hearing a strange noise from behind. He whips the reins frantically, his face twisted in a desperate scream. The entire carriage overturns in a dramatic crash, throwing the driver onto the dirt road. The driver struggles to sit up, clutching his lower back in pain. He looks up with a terrified expression, sensing a new presence. From his perspective, a swarm of glowing white eyes appears in the darkness of the forest. A horde of monsters, including hulking orcs and smaller goblins, emerges from the trees, their eyes glowing with malice. The driver scrambles backward on the ground, his face pale with horror and despair. A swarm of goblins, led by a large orc, lunges towards the helpless driver. The driver shuts his eyes tightly, bracing for his imminent death, a single tear of sweat rolling down his face. From the goblin's point of view, it looks up to see the driver has been suddenly encased in a pillar of solid rock. From behind our boy, we see the horde of orcs and goblins staring up at him, their attack thwarted. An orc with glowing red eyes and a vicious smile turns its head, noticing something. Zedaran stands calmly atop a tall, jagged rock, looking down on the monsters below. He holds his hand open, and a ball of fire ignites. In his palm, a massive tusked orc with glowing red eyes lets out a ferocious roar as it charges forward. Our boy smiles confidently, surrounded by floating spheres of fire, ready for the fight. A fire starts on a tree branch at night, quickly spreading to the surrounding forest canopy, engulfing it in flames. Our boy stands triumphantly atop a tall rock pillar, looking down as the fire he created blasts away the horde of monsters below. A massive, muscular orc with a sadistic grin on its face emerges from the flames, flanked by its smaller kin. The giant orc points a commanding finger at the ground, ordering its underlings forward. From the monster's perspective, they charge towards the lone figure of Zedaran, who stands defiantly on his perch. Our boy's hands move deftly, weaving two intricate magic circles that crackle with pink and blue lightning. With a look of intense focus, Zedaran thrusts his hand forward, a complex red magic circle materializing before it. From our boy's vantage point, multiple glowing, fiery magic circles appear on the ground, perfectly positioned to intercept the charging monster horde. A massive fiery explosion erupts from the ground, consuming the orcs and goblins in a blistering inferno. In the aftermath, the scorched ground is littered with the charred remains of the monsters. Zedaran floats gracefully in the air, a large blue magic circle glowing behind him as a light rain begins to fall, extinguishing the last of the flames. Our boy looks down upon the scene of destruction with a calm, analytical expression, his silver hair gently blowing in the breeze. He stands at the edge of the pillar, looking down towards the rock formation where the coach driver is hidden. A colossal, monstrous hand with sharp claws suddenly lunges from the shadows behind the pillar, reaching for our boy. Zedaran's eyes go wide with alarm as he whips his head around, sensing the surprise attack just in time. The scene shifts to a sunny day, with a horse-drawn carriage traveling along a peaceful country road. The driver, a young man named Conrad, holds the reins with a wide, blushing and incredibly cheerful expression. Inside the carriage, Conrad turns around to speak animatedly with Zedaran, who is sitting quietly in the background. Our boy sits with a weary expression, clearly not in the mood for conversation as the carriage rattles along. As Conrad continues his one-sided conversation, Zedaran's eye twitches in annoyance. Our boy leans his head back and closes his eyes, trying to get some rest despite the driver's endless chatter. In a brief flashback, Zedaran's face is shown, his eyes wide with surprise during the monster attack. The flashback reveals the massive gray-skinned orc that ambushed him, its mouth open in a terrifying roar. A memory shows our boy reacting instantly, summoning a swirling blade of blue energy in his hand. He is seen spinning through the air, delivering a decisive, clean slash of energy that cuts through the giant monster. Back in the present, Zedaran leans back in his seat with a confident, satisfied smile. The carriage is seen from the back as it travels down a dirt road, with Conrad and our boy sitting on the front bench. A silhouetted figure is seen sitting at a desk, looking out a large, sunlit window. In a flashback, Conrad stands in the forest, looking up at several letters pinned to a tree with a knife. Zedaran sits inside the carriage, a thoughtful expression on his face as he rests his chin on his fist. Another memory shows our boy in the river, staring at his own changed reflection with shock. Our boy looks on with a calm expression as Conrad continues to drive the carriage. Zedaran sits with a relaxed and confident posture as they continue their journey. A large, ornate mansion with dozens of lit windows stands against the dark blue sky of early evening. A nobleman with brown hair and wearing an elegant, high-collared jacket looks on with an expression of pure shock, a bead of sweat dripping down his temple. Conrad scratches the back of his head with a sheepish, blushing grin. The nobleman walks past Conrad to greet Zedaran, who stands patiently by the horses. With a curious expression, the nobleman looks from Conrad to our boy, who stands calmly by the carriage. From a high angle, Zed Aaron is seen walking across the polished, checkered marble floor of the grand estate. Now wearing a fine black and gold-trimmed outfit, our boy stands respectfully with his hand over his heart, flanked by two maids. The nobleman, Baron Henrod, smiles warmly. The Baron sits at the head of a long, lavishly set dining table, gesturing for his guests to be seated. The table is laden with a magnificent feast, including roasted meats, lobsters, and pasta. Baron Henrod leans forward with his hands clasped, a polite smile on his face as he speaks to his guest. Zed Aaron calmly takes a bite of the delicious food, listening to the Baron's proposal. Our boy sets his fork down, his expression turning thoughtful as he considers the offer. A dark, stylized image shows the silhouettes of numerous bodies hanging by their necks from unseen branches. The Baron's expression becomes grim as he clasps his hands on the table, recounting the dark discovery. The long candle-lit dining room is shown from a low angle, emphasizing the seriousness of the Baron's story. Zed Aaron and Baron Henrod sit at opposite ends of the grand dining table, discussing the job. The Baron smiles, his fingers interlaced, confident he has found the right person for the task. A knight in full plate armor stands before the massive arched gate of a stone castle. The knight commander, a man named Enoch with graying hair and a mustache, bows respectfully. Two other members of the party, a muscular man and a cheerful young man, are introduced next to a horse. In the castle courtyard, Zed Aaron and Enoch shake hands. Our boy smirks to himself, recalling the Baron's eager cartoonish expression when he accepted the job. Zed Aaron and Enoch turn their attention to a large group of shadowy figures gathered in the courtyard. Two of the assembled adventurers, one with an eye patch, are seen studying a notice. A close-up shows a golden pendant shaped like the Roman numeral 2, hanging around an adventurer's neck. Our boy walks with the knights and horses, about to exit the castle through its large, raised portcullis. The party, consisting of our boy, 3 knights, and a group of robed adventurers, travels along a forest path. Enoch, the knight commander, turns to speak to Zed Aaron as they walk. From behind our boy's shoulder, Enoch can be seen talking with a friendly smile. Enoch's expression suddenly changes to one of shock and alarm, his mouth slightly agape. Zed Aaron stands calmly in the middle of the path, having stopped the entire party in their tracks. Our boy sweeps his hand in a wide arc, a trail of white light revealing a hidden barrier. His hand reaches out, touching a shimmering, invisible wall covered in glowing red runes. A massive, complex magic circle, glowing an ominous red, materializes on the ground, blocking the entire path. Zed Aaron holds up a hand, signaling for the rest of the party to stay back as he approaches the magical trap. A vertical line of brilliant white light splits the image of our boy's face as he prepares to dismantle the enemy magic. From a high aerial view, the party is seen as a small group on the path, from which 2 beams of light shoot forward. A close-up shows the shocked face of one of the adventurers, his eyes wide in disbelief. Our boy glances over his shoulder with a confident, knowing smile, the path ahead now clear and bathed in sunlight. 3 adventurers stand in the darkness over a pile of enormous, defeated insectoid monsters. A bloody hand lies limp on the ground, surrounded by scattered gold and silver coins next to the hilt of a sword. Against a blood-red sky with silhouettes of hanging bodies, 2 murderous bandits stand over their latest victims. A bandit with a long ponytail, holding 2 katanas, looks up with an angry and impatient expression. The head of a freshly killed deer lies in a pool of blood on the dirt ground. The bandit leader yells at his lazy subordinates, who are standing around idly while the dead deer lies at his feet. From the cover of the dense forest undergrowth, Knight Commander Enoch and his 2 men watch the bandits camp intently. Enoch grips the hilt of his sword, his knuckles white, as he prepares to give the signal to attack. Zed Aaron places a calm hand on the commander's shoulder, silently advising him to wait. Our boy looks on with a cool, calculated expression, assessing the enemy camp from a distance. One of the bandits, a man with blue hair, is seen talking while casually polishing his longsword with a cloth. The bandit with the ponytail puffs out his chest and complains loudly, while the blue-haired man ignores him. The swordsman bandit puts a hand behind his head in frustration, clearly exasperated by their situation. With a devious grin, the swordsman turns to his blue-haired companion with a new, malicious idea. The blue-haired bandit mage stands with his arms crossed, listening to his partner's suggestion with a stern expression. Streaks of fiery orange energy suddenly fly through the air towards the bandit's location. The bandit mage turns in surprise as explosions of fire erupt all around him. A massive fireball detonates in the center of the bandit encampment. The mage quickly summons a swirling blue magic circle, creating a barrier to shield himself and the swordsman from the blast. The Baron's knights, led by a young, eager warrior, charge out from the forest and into the clearing. An overhead view captures the chaos of the surprise attack as the knights and adventurers clash with the disoriented bandits. The bandit mage cries out as he is struck in the head by the butt of a staff, blood flying from his mouth. The bandit swordsman looks over his shoulder with a worried expression, seeing his partner get hit. A bead of sweat drips down the swordsman's face as he struggles in the heat of battle. Zed Aran stands calmly in the woods, a glowing golden magic circle hovering over his hand, while Commander Enoch kneels before him. The bandit swordsman snarls, drawing his twin katanas with a look of fierce determination. A flash of steel is seen as one of the swordsman's blades swings through the air. Commander Enoch and the bandit swordsman are locked in a tense standoff, their swords crossed between them. The swordsman yells with rage, while Enoch parries his blow with a calm, steady gaze. The bandit mage turns and flees into the woods, but sees Zedaran descending from the sky to cut him off. As he runs, the bandit mage slaps his hand on the ground, causing a wall of earth to rise up behind him. The mage looks up and launches a volley of sharp ice projectiles at our boy, who hovers gracefully on a floating rock platform. The barrage of ice arrows homes in on Zedaran, who remains perfectly still and unfazed. Our boy becomes wreathed in a powerful aura of swirling orange fire. The fire and ice attacks collide in a brilliant explosion of opposing magical energies. A massive blast of white and blue light radiates outwards from the point of impact. The battlefield is now a desolate crater. The ground scorched and the trees vaporized, with a light mist rising from the destruction. The bandit mage coughs up blood, kneeling on the ground in defeat, his staff held weakly in his hand. Through the smoke and haze, the silhouette of Zedaran calmly walks towards the defeated mage. Our boy stands before his beaten opponent, his expression neutral as he looks down at him. The two mages face each other across the barren wasteland, the setting sun casting long shadows. The bandit mage looks up with a final, desperate grin, his eyes wide with madness as he unleashes his remaining power. A gigantic wall of shimmering blue ice erupts from the ground, racing towards our boy. Zedaran looks up with a calm, almost bored expression as the towering ice wall approaches. The massive ice formation closes in, completely trapping our boy within a solid magical prison. The bandit mage smiles triumphantly, though a single bead of sweat rolls down his temple. Thick, jagged pillars of rock suddenly and violently burst through the walls of the ice prison from the inside. The bandit mage stares in horror as he sees Zedaran standing completely unharmed, protected by a cage of his own rock pillars. Our boy stands confidently with one arm raised, effortlessly controlling the pillars of earth that shattered the ice. Zedaran clenches his fist, a golden aura of power flaring around it. The rock pillars explode outwards, shattering the last remnants of the ice prison into a glittering shower of fragments. The bandit mage's face is a mask of pure terror and disbelief at this overwhelming display of power. Our boy stands amidst the sparkling dust of shattered ice, casually holding a newly formed crystal shard in his hand. The reflection of Zedaran, poised and powerful, is seen in the bandit mage's terrified, widening eye. The bandit mage's body is thrown backward as blood erupts from his chest, his silhouette falling before the still figure of our boy. With the battle over, Zedaran casually wipes a speck of blood from his cheek with his thumb. He rests his chin in his hand, his expression thoughtful as he processes the events of the fight. The camera focuses on the corpse of a fallen adventurer, identifiable by his horned helmet. A close-up reveals a golden pendant shaped like the Roman numeral 2, hanging from the thick neck of a muscular, red-skinned orc. The red orc stands in the middle of a bloody battlefield, holding a blood-soaked knife and grinning menacingly over the corpses of slain adventurers. Hunched over a glowing surface, Zedaran grits his teeth, his eyes glowing with blue energy while golden, crack-like patterns of power spread across his face from the immense strain. A flashback shows a bubbling green liquid being funneled into a container, followed by a pair of hands filling a syringe with the potent, glowing substance. A chaotic flash of black and white shows the ground violently shattering from a powerful impact. Our boy stands in the desolate, dusty aftermath of the battle, looking down at the lifeless body of the bandit mage. A close-up reveals the dead mage's hand still clutching a purple and gold wand, its crystal orb glowing faintly. Zed Aaron kneels beside the fallen foe, his hand hovering over the wand as its glow intensifies. He grips the wand, and its runic inscriptions flare with a brilliant blue light, a torrent of magical information flowing into him. The young knight, Perik, comes running towards the scene, waving his arm with a look of immense relief on his face. Perik stands on the edge of the massive crater created by the fight, looking across the chasm at Zed Aaron with awe. The young knight kneels beside the body of another fallen bandit while our boy stands nearby, examining his new wand. Perik turns back with a bright, cheerful smile, shouldering a large sack he has collected. Our boy's expression is tight and serious as he clutches the wand, his mind racing with a difficult question. Perik gives a happy thumbs up, now carrying 2 large sacks, looking like an enthusiastic, cartoonish squire. A warm memory of Baron Pyth appears, smiling and giving a thumbs up against a soft, glowing background. Against the warm colors of a setting sun, Zed Aaron stands with the wand in hand, a soft, thoughtful expression on his face. The victorious party of knights and adventurers stands assembled at the edge of the forest, with the captured bandits and their fallen comrades piled before them. The captive bandit leader, now bound and kneeling with his men, looks up in utter disbelief at the scene. The swordsman's face is a mask of pure terror, sweat beading on his brow as he realizes the totality of his defeat. 2 paper talismans are thrown through the air, fluttering towards the ground near the captives. The bandit leader explodes into motion, a whirlwind of red energy slicing through his ropes and the soldiers around him. With a guttural scream, he lunges forward, a wicked-looking dagger now in his hand. He charges directly towards the rear of the formation, aiming for the 2 commanders. The bandit's dagger clashes against Commander Enoch's sword in a violent burst of sparks and blue energy. With a crazed, desperate grin, the swordsman presses his attack. Commander Enoch effortlessly blocks the dagger with the hilt of his sword, his expression calm and controlled. The bandit leader's eyes widen in shock as his desperate attack is easily neutralized. In a single fluid motion, Enoch twists, using the bandit's own momentum to flip him through the air. The bandit is slammed violently into the dirt, his body contorted at an awkward angle. 2 soldiers immediately rush in and pin the defeated swordsman to the ground. Knight Commander Enoch stands over his captive, calmly wiping a small dagger clean with his thumb. The sun glints off the sharp edge of the dagger as Enoch holds it just above the bandit's terrified, sweat-soaked face. A close-up shows the defeated bandit's boot twitching helplessly on the ground. Enoch clears his throat awkwardly while our boy smiles beside him, the captured bandits kneeling quietly in the background. Our boy and the commander stand before the 2 remaining rows of bound prisoners. 3 of the captured bandits kneel with their heads bowed, resigned to their fate. A knight gestures with his hand, giving the order to move the prisoners. A soldier roughly prods a bound captive with the butt of his axe to get him to his feet. One of the prisoners makes a desperate last-ditch effort to escape, scrambling away from the group. From the fleeing captive's perspective, he sees the line of soldiers blocking his path, with our boy standing impassively among them. Zed Aaron watches with a neutral expression as the knight named Harris steps forward to deal with the runner. Our boy's eyes narrow slightly as he senses something is wrong, his gaze fixed on Harris. A strange, shimmering red aura briefly appears around Harris as he turns to look at the commotion. The entire party stands alert on the forest path, watching the unfolding chaos. A massive, powerful fist slams into the ground, sending out a visible shockwave. The head of the escaping prisoner explodes in a shower of blood and bone fragments. The soldiers look on in absolute horror and confusion at the sudden, brutal event. Our boy wears a grim expression, a single bead of sweat trickling down his temple as he understands the new threat. A colossal, red-skinned orc wielding a massive axe charges towards the group, dwarfing the knights in its path. Zedaran's magical senses create a blue, grid-like view of the area, revealing dozens of powerful enemies hiding in the woods. The leader of the new threat is revealed. A hulking, red-skinned orc with glowing eyes and the stolen adventurer's pendant around its neck. A flashback shows the terrifyingly wide, sadistic grin of the powerful gray-skinned orc from Zedaran's first encounter. The evolved red orc walks forward confidently, holding a crude but massive blade, followed by the dark silhouettes of its horde. The red orc leader points forward, commanding its army of lesser orcs and goblins to charge. Commander Enoch raises his hand and shouts orders, rallying his men into a defensive formation. The orc leader's gigantic sword clashes with a knight's much smaller blade, creating a massive impact. Commander Enoch is thrown backward through the air, utterly overpowered by the monster's strength. The red orc lifts its enormous foot, preparing to crush the fallen knight commander. A bright, X-shaped slash of energy appears, blocking the descending foot and protecting the men below. The knight, Harris, is pushed back by the force of his own defensive move, his boots digging trenches in the ground. Harris rushes forward and powerfully stabs his sword deep into the red orc's chest. The knight's sword carves a massive bleeding wound across the orc's entire torso. The huge monster takes a single step back, seemingly unfazed by the deep gash in its body. The red orc grits its teeth and coughs up blood, steam billowing from its mouth. In a shocking move, the orc grabs a nearby goblin from its own ranks. The knights and soldiers look on in horror as the red orc leader shoves the screaming goblin into its mouth and devours it whole. The orc casually spits out a single, clean bone. The red orc stands tall, the grievous wound on its chest completely healed, as it picks up its giant sword once more. Commander Enoch stares with grim resolve. While behind him, Zedaran stands with his hands clasped, a red magic circle glowing intensely as he prepares a powerful spell. With a wicked grin, the red orc hefts its giant sword onto its shoulder, ready to charge. The monster hurls its massive sword through the air, causing it to spin like a deadly, oversized boomerang. The spinning projectile of stone and death flies directly towards the knight Harris. Harris grits his teeth and raises his long sword, preparing to block the impossibly large weapon. The sheer force of the impact shatters Harris's steel sword into countless pieces. Shards of his broken sword fly towards Harris's unprotected face. An extreme close-up of Harris's eye shows the deadly metal fragments just before they hit. A massive stylized splash of black blood fills the screen, signifying a devastating blow. Commander Enoch and the young knight Peric look on in absolute horror. The giant red orc suddenly appears directly in front of Peric, its massive arm reaching for him. Peric reacts instantly, his eyes glowing as he swings his own sword, which is now wreathed in blue energy. The young knight's face is a mask of shock and disbelief. His blade sinks into the orc's thick bicep but becomes hopelessly stuck in the dense muscle. Peric struggles with all his might, but he cannot pull his sword free from the monster's arm. The red orc's free fist, glowing with an intense orange aura, smashes forward in a devastating punch. In the background, Zedaran stands calmly, a ring of small rocks floating around him as he casts a protective spell. Peric is thrown backward by the force of the blow, sliding across the dirt to safety. Now beside our boy, Peric is on the verge of tears, his face contorted in frustration and fear. A close-up on Peric's face shows a tear streaking down his dirty cheek. Zedaran looks over at the distraught young knight with a calm, reassuring expression. A montage of red-tinted images shows the orc's terrifying abilities. Regenerating from wounds, commanding its kin, and overpowering knights with brute force. Our boy turns to face the enemy, a confident and knowing smirk on his lips. A hooded figure demonstrates the principle of magic, showing how a spell has a fixed limit to its power. With his eyes closed in concentration, Zedaran cups his hands together, forming a complex, glowing golden magic circle. A close-up of his hand shows them weaving the intricate runes of a powerful and ancient spell. A wave of energy erupts from our boy, cracking the very ground beneath him and sending dust and debris flying. Two soldiers are thrown off balance as the earth trembles violently. Knight Commander Enoch shouts orders to his men, trying to keep them steady amidst the chaos. The The commander stands on a newly formed pillar of earth, struggling to maintain his footing. The entire battlefield has been transformed. Our boy and the knights now stand on a tall, isolated plateau, while the monsters are trapped in the deep chasm that has formed around them. Countless goblins and orcs tumble helplessly into the newly created canyon, their screams echoing in the air. The red orc leader lies broken and bleeding at the bottom of the chasm, crushed by the falling earth. From his perch high above, Zedaran raises his hand, summoning a massive, swirling ball of fire. The colossal fireball descends like a meteor into the chasm, aimed directly at the trapped monsters. The young knight Perrick looks on with a starstruck heart-shaped glint in his eyes, completely in awe of our boy's power. Zedaran stands alone in the now silent, scorched, and reshaped landscape. Our boy touches his chin thoughtfully, his expression suggesting he is slightly disappointed with the result of his spell. A deafening roar suddenly erupts from the chasm, startling Zedaran and the knights. The red orc leader rises from the flames, its body crackling with white energy, having survived the cataclysmic attack by eating another goblin. Perrick grabs our boy by the shoulders, his face a mask of pure panic and desperation. In response, Zedaran summons a massive wave of churning blue water that pours down into the chasm. Our boy leaps gracefully from the plateau, his cape billowing as he descends towards the monstrous foe. He brandishes the ice wand, its crystal glowing with an intense, frosty blue light. A volley of magical ice shards rains down from the sky, piercing the bodies of the remaining orcs and goblins. 3 goblins are frozen solid in blocks of shimmering magical ice. Zedaran stands before the colossal red orc, a blue magic circle glowing at his feet as he prepares his next spell. He kneels on one knee, holding the wand with both hands as he channels his power. He thrusts the wand forward, unleashing a concentrated beam of pure ice energy. The red orc leader grins defiantly, its eyes glowing red as it withstands the freezing blast. A sphere of swirling energy, a perfect fusion of fire and ice, forms at the tip of our boy's wand. The orb is unleashed, shooting towards the orc leader in a brilliant flash. The resulting explosion throws Zedaran backward, his body floating in the air as the orc is engulfed in the blast. The scene shifts to a breathtaking view of a massive white-walled city with towering spires, nestled in a lush green landscape. On a sunny balcony overlooking the city, 2 well-dressed men are having a conversation. An older gentleman with a prominent white mustache spits out his drink in shock at what he is hearing. In another location, a group of 4 figures in dark, hooded robes stand together in a grand, stone hall. The older gentleman from the balcony is seen talking with one of the hooded figures. A hooded figure stops abruptly in a doorway, having heard something that startles them. The older gentleman leans in conspiratorially, whispering a juicy rumor to the hooded figure. The man's teacup is violently knocked from his hand, its dark contents spilling all over his fine clothes. He grabs the front of the hooded figure's robe, his face contorted in a furious rage. The hood falls back to reveal the shocked face of a young woman with long red hair and matching red eyes. A close-up on the woman's face shows her eyes are wide with alarm and deep concern. The scene is cast in a dark, ominous red glow as she processes the terrible news. A beautiful multi-story building with classic European architecture stands tall against a clear blue sky dotted with fluffy white clouds. 2 large wooden mugs overflowing with frothy beer are clinked together in a celebratory toast. An overhead view shows a lavish and brightly lit ballroom, filled with dozens of guests mingling and celebrating. In the background, 3 of the knights stand on a grand staircase, while the foreground is filled with the blurry shapes of other partygoers. Baron Pyth, his face flushed with joy and drink, smiles warmly while holding a glass of red wine. Zedaran makes his grand entrance, looking incredibly sharp in a tailored dark gray waistcoat and suit, as Conrad follows a step behind him. The Baron enthusiastically slings an arm around our boy's shoulders, pulling him in for a friendly side hug while offering him a glass of wine. The 2 men stand together, looking out over the lively banquet hall where soldiers and guests celebrate together. The Baron leans in close to Zedaran, a sly smile on his face as he shares a quiet word with his guest of honor. Our boy takes a thoughtful sip of wine, a ghostly image of the defeated bandit swordsman and mage appearing in his mind. The Baron gestures to a well-dressed older man, who approaches carrying a rolled-up scroll. A montage of images flashes by, showing the wanted posters for the two bandits and the golden adventurer's pendant they once wore. Zedaran unrolls the parchment and reads its contents, his expression becoming serious. He takes a slow sip of wine, his eyes looking over the rim of the glass at the Baron as he processes the information. The Baron's face transforms into a cartoonishly emotional expression, his eyes welling up with huge sparkling tears of gratitude. While our boy watches with a bemused smile, the Baron is physically restrained by his attendant as he gets carried away with emotion. The Baron clears his throat and dabs his mouth with a handkerchief, quickly regaining his noble composure. He stands with Knight Commander Enoch and the two other knights, all placing their hands over their hearts in a gesture of sincere respect and thanks. The Baron and the knights raise their glasses, leading the entire hall in a toast to our boy. Dozens of wine glasses and wooden mugs are raised high in the air in a unified cheer. At a long banquet table, the knight Harris enjoys a drink while his young comrade Peric is passed out, face down in a puddle of his own drool. A young maid blushes, her eyes wide with admiration as she stands behind Zedaran. Our boy finds himself in a slightly awkward situation as a blushing young noblewoman is introduced to him by her father. A very drunk Peric has his arm slung around our boy's shoulders, trying to force an overflowing mug of beer on him. For the first time, a genuine, unguarded smile graces Zedaran's lips as he blushes and enjoys the rowdy, good-natured celebration. In another land, the magnificent magic tower is shown standing tall against a brilliant orange sunset. The red-haired woman, Rovalyn, looks up at the tower, a soft, relieved smile on her face as she returns home. She approaches a worker who is carrying a wooden crate across a sunny paved courtyard. Rovalyn speaks to the worker, her expression bright with anticipation as she asks her question. A finger points towards a large bulletin board in a public square, where a crowd of people is gathered. The board is revealed to be a list of missing persons, its surface covered in names written in an unfamiliar script. Rovalyn's face is cast in a dark shadow, her eyes widening in shock and horror as she reads the names. A close-up shows wanted poster-style portraits of several missing mages, including the blonde-haired Weller. The list also includes portraits of the two guards that our boy defeated in the power source chamber. From behind, Rovalyn stares at the board, her gaze fixed on a single, heart-wrenching image. A portrait of a shirtless Zedaran. The missing person notice for Verdun is shown, detailing his last known whereabouts and status. A blurry, distorted memory flashes by of another mage smiling at Zedaran. Another distorted memory shows Rovalyn looking back sadly from a carriage. The final blurry memory shows Zedaran standing proudly in front of a window. An image of a younger, happier Zedaran laughing in a sunlit forest suddenly shatters like broken glass. Rovalyn brings her hands to her face, her body trembling with overwhelming grief. She clutches her head and lets out a silent scream, her despair manifesting as a powerful, fiery red aura. A massive shockwave of red energy explodes from her body, sending dust and debris flying. A gentle hand comes to rest on Rovalyn's head as she weeps, tears streaming down her face. A stern-looking man with dark hair, Valdek, stands over her, his expression unreadable as he comforts her. Valdek helps the devastated Rovalyn to her feet in the courtyard of the Verentian Magic Academy. He gently pulls her cloak up over her shoulders as she collapses against him. A flashback shows the smoldering ruins of the village near the Bohemian Magic Tower. Another memory shows the Tower Master, his eyes glowing, standing before the glowing purple heart of the tower. A final painful memory shows Zedaran chained and bloody in the secret experimental chamber. Valdek places a comforting hand on Rovalyn's shoulder, but her eyes are wide with shock and suspicion. She turns and grabs his arm, her expression a mixture of grief and anger as she questions him. Valdek calmly holds up a triangular red pendant with a swirling eye emblem in its center. The pendant hovers before Rovalyn's face, her own wide, shocked eyes reflected in its polished surface. A dark stylized image shows a massive red eye hovering over a group of cloaked figures and a fallen skeleton. Valdek stands before the Grand Verentian Magic Tower, the ominous red pendant resting in the palm of his hand. He looks down at Rovalyn, his expression serious as he speaks to her. Rovalyn's hand clenches into a fist so tight that blood drips from between her fingers. She kneels on the ground, engulfed in a raging aura of pure, unadulterated red energy, her eyes glowing with hatred. Back in Pate's domain, our boy sits comfortably on a plush sofa, sipping tea. An official from the Adventurers Guild, a man in a formal uniform with glasses, bows nervously to Zed Aran. The official wipes sweat from his brow with a handkerchief before placing a document on the table. Our boy sits in a relaxed posture, calmly reviewing the details of his reward certificate. The guild official gestures wildly with his hands, his face a mask of panicked desperation as he explains the tax laws. He leans in with a sweaty, conspiratorial smile, lowering his voice as if sharing a great secret. The official stands and gestures enthusiastically around the opulent room, pitching his proposal. Zed Aran sets his teacup down on its saucer with a soft, definitive click. With a signed document in hand, our boy leans back and lets out a hearty, joyful laugh.